All righty. Hello, hello, and welcome to Follow Up Boss Office Hours. I'm excited to dive in today on optimizing your lead flow. A lot of cool stuff you can do there. My name is Lee Adkins. I'll be your host along with Alejandro Estrada. What's going on, man?
Hello, hanging in there, Lee. Always a
Love it.
pleasure.
Yeah, excited to do this with you. Tell us a little bit just quick about your background, what you do at Follow Up Boss and all that, and then we'll dive right into lead flow.
Yeah, of course. I'm a customer success manager here with Follow Up Boss. I've been here for almost 4 years. So there's been a lot of improvements, of course, since I've been here, and I'm excited to walk people through not only just like the foundational aspects of like the lead flow, but also some more advanced stuff for those of you who have already done a little bit and are ready to learn more.
Awesome. Love it. So at a high level, before we share screens, like what is lead flow? Like what are the things you can do in it? Why does it matter? Is it just another thing that we never get to? Or like why does this really matter?
Yeah, no, I mean, like one of the things that Follow Up Boss does really, really well, among other things, is getting everything into one place, right? So, um, getting all of your different lead sources into Follow Up Boss so that you can then nurture those leads and convert them from one system is going to be a really important aspect of getting your system set up for you guys to succeed. So, um, every time you get a lead from a new lead source, it's going to create what's called a lead flow. And through that lead flow screen, we can then have the system do all kinds of stuff for us so that we don't have to manually do it ourselves, right? Which is also a really great thing that Follow Up Boss does. Um, in addition to distributing leads to the right agents, we can also, if you guys have lender partners that are on your Follow Up Boss instance with you, you can include them on the lead. You can also have an action plan run on these leads instantly, automatically as they enter the lead flow. So taking care of that whole speed to lead aspect. Unfortunately, that's something that I don't see a lot of teams taking advantage of, even though it's just one of these like basic features where it's like, guys, why not? Right?
This
Just do
is
it.
I think this is one of I don't want to say few, but this is one thing you can largely actually set and forget, but you need to set.
Yeah. And people shy away from it because of XYZ reasons, but I think the pros vastly outweigh the cons in that sense of like adding an action plan to a lead flow, letting the system do something for you. It's all very clearly laid out, and we're going to go walk through all that together.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing quick to mention too, I love you said it this way, Alejandro. Like, this is not just a team thing. Like, it's great for teams and groups of people and segmenting and all that stuff. But I think it's equally as important if you are a solo or a small group because you can really kind of prioritize different sources. You can control the messaging that's going out for you on purpose. If you, like you said, if you're working with a lender partner, you could potentially add them from the get-go to help with some conversion. There really is a lot that you can do. So I know sometimes we talk more teams, sometimes we talk more solos, but this is really relevant to everybody.
It really is 100%.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if you want, go ahead and share the screen and let's look at the lead flow.
Cool. So here's the login screen. That's a photo of myself. I look a lot like Lee, but
Yes,
that's
very similar.
actually me. If I go to admin lead flow, this is the page that where all my lead flows are going to show up. So, we're in blur mode, but let's just pretend like Zillow, Trulia, Homelight, Ylopo, whatever, right? Any of your lead sources, when they start flowing into Follow Up Boss, will create one of these lines, which is called a lead flow. And via each lead flow, you'll see a number of different options that you can do. We talked about distributing leads to the right agent. We talked about distributing leads to the correct lender. If you guys have lender partners inside on your actual instance of Follow Up Boss, team members on your instance of Follow Up Boss, and then creating action plans and assigning them directly to the lead flow like they are here so that they fire off immediately, right when the lead comes in through the lead flow. Now, getting your leads in, how does this even happen? Right? Like, how does a
Yeah,
lead flow,
right. How
right?
how do we get these to occur? I was funny. We had a note on that, and I was like, I like where you're going, but let's also definitely get
Yeah,
in
yeah.
how the heck do we get them in here? And really,
So,
Fault Boss is again best in class at this. This was something early on that they did, and I think the business was almost built on the idea. I mean, Dan has said it many times on stage, like the whole thing was getting the leads in here in the first place. And I know they really focused on that.
Yeah.
Quick funny story, if I dare to share it. And Dan shared this before. You should find the recording if you want to check it out. He and Tom were in different parts of the world, and they literally took turns manually entering leads for people before this came about. So it has always been a focus.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So,
yeah, you want
it,
to tackle how to the kind of, I guess, three-ish, four-ish different ways that
yeah,
leads are pushed in the first place.
yeah, totally. So yeah, there's like three-ish, four-ish leads, like or ways that people enter the system automatically. The first one, perhaps the most direct one, the most simple one, would be through email parsing. So, if you have a lead source and they send you lead notification emails in the correct format, which there's a real estate industry standard format which is called lead metadata. You don't need to necessarily know this, but just know that most lead sources send those email notifications in the correct format. And our email parser, which parser might be a strange word for you, but parser is basically, you can think of it as a robot that detects data in a certain format. And when it detects that data in that format, it creates a lead out of it automatically in the system. So the mechanism behind this is that lead email gets sent. I'll just go to the My Settings page. If you have a connected email and those lead email notifications are sent to this email, that's the first piece of this. The second piece of this is going to admin API and making sure that lead processing is turned on. That way, we will monitor your email inbox for new lead notifications and put them in Follow Up Boss automatically. So really all that needs to happen is through your lead provider, you have them send those new lead notifications to your connected email in Follow Up Boss, and then make sure that lead processing is on in Follow Up Boss. That's all you need to do. And for the vast majority of lead sources, this is how, this is one of the best ways to get those leads into Follow Up Boss.
And I've seen a lot of people do it where, they do it that way, where you just simply, it can be an automatic email forward rule. A lot of these systems in the back end have a place to put like additional lead email. Some of them
Yeah.
have that. I will also say, and I'll drop a link, the Follow Up Boss knowledge base is unbelievable for each specific source of saying, like, go into realtor.com, click this button, put in this email, and hit save, and you're good. And you can also easily find it while you're in your account by clicking on the question mark.
Exactly. Here you go. Right. There's a couple ways, right? Like a couple few ways
Yeah.
to get, but like, like HomeLight, homes.com, right? Like there's just, I mean, you name it. Most likely we're going to have a support article showing you exactly what to do and how to get those leads into the system. One last thing I'll mention about about lead processing is, like you mentioned, Lee, like if there's an additional field that you can have that lead source send those emails to, putting your lead email address in that field would be a great way, for non-Google accounts. This would be the one that you want those lead notifications to go to, because this is just specifically for lead parsing.
Right. And Pete, just again, just to reiterate what you said, it's not a visible email address anywhere. It's not like you now have a new email. It's a back end. That's part of why I would assume the domain is .me, just to be, hey, this is different. So it's not about emailing with it. It's simply going to process leads that are sent to it. And one other important note, although I believe it only notifies the owner level of the account, if it cannot process it for some reason, it will email you and say, hey, we detected this as a, attempted lead, but it didn't process, which is amazing because you don't have to hope, if it processed, or if it breaks, you'll get the same email if it doesn't work down the line for some reason. So I just
Right.
wanted to also mention that, be sure that whoever is the email on the owner account is aware that those notifications are important and that they
So,
get to the right person.
yep, exactly. And that of course will happen if that lead isn't, or that email is in the wrong format, which
Right.
is not common, but sometimes it happens.
Yeah. Or they change sometimes, but you guys are on top of fixing them when they do. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And
So the second main way that people come in through the lead flow is through API. So oftentimes, these larger lead providers will have an API integration already built, and all they'll need is an API key that you can create in Follow Up Boss, uh, name it appropriately,
yeah.
and then just copy and paste that API key into that lead provider's field, and you're done.
And I
Um,
want to reiterate, I think this is where people get scared. They're like, okay, this is like programming stuff. You're literally pasting a string of characters into something and pressing save. This is
yeah,
not scary. I just want to
exactly.
overemphasize that like should
Just
never be scared of it.
copy this and paste it in, and you're done. All
Yeah.
right,
Spot on.
it's okay. You can do it. Awesome. So I'm just going to copy it. It won't let me hit done until I copy it. So I'll just delete that, and it's
I'll be
easy to
sending stuff
undo.
into my demo follow-up boss account.
Totally. Yeah, it's easy to undo, as you can see. And then, tagging onto the API aspect of getting leads into the system, the follow-up boss pixel is also a way to get leads into the system. So, if you guys don't know about the follow-up boss pixel, admin, integrations, and here's the pixel. It's just a snippet of code that you can plug into the header or the footer, usually the header of your website. And what this does is whenever one of your follow-up boss leads clicks a link that you produced through follow-up boss, so maybe you texted them a link to your website or you emailed them a link to your website through follow-up boss, if they click that link, the pixel will attach a cookie to their browsing activity, and it'll tell you like when their last visit was, are they online now, properties viewed, properties saved, all that kind of stuff. So valuable to do it. But also what this does is whenever they fill out a lead form on your website, that lead will just enter the system automatically.
Yes, and I would be remiss to not mention, I know it says it right there as well. This can also cause major issues if your website is connected by API also. It says it right below it. If you already receive leads from your website via API, it's a best practice to leave it off. It
Yep.
does do weird things. If it's on with it, it'll either do a double lead or a lead flow. It does do weird things. But
Yeah,
for the most part, you're going to know you're one or the other. Like, we don't have our website connected via API. Let's use Pixel to do this.
exactly.
Or it's connected via API or Zapier or something, and we do not need to do this. But
Yeah.
yes, I'm so glad you covered that.
And yeah, of course, it's just the creating of the leads aspect. The pixel does more than creating leads, but yeah, that's why we have this option. Thanks for bringing that up. Cool. And then, last but not least is through a third party like Zapier. Zapier's a wonderful app. It's very, very capable. But basically what it does is it connects two apps that don't normally communicate with each other, right? So, a common Zapier integration is like Google Forms to Follow Up Boss. Inherently, there's no API connection that connects those two apps. But through Zapier, you can, make it so that when someone fills out your Google Forms, let's say, for example, you have a Google form for your open house that you're hosting. Someone walks in, hey, fill out this information. It's a Google form. They're like, fine, first name, last name, email, phone. They submit that Google form. Zapier recognizes that and creates a lead out of that information into Follow Up Boss automatically. So that's like the last fourth third way to get leads into the system. Well, of course manually, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yes, yes. That's the
Um,
whole point. We want to avoid the manual.
yeah, exactly. Um, who
And I
is
just dropped a quick link to all the playlist, the Follow Up Boss Office Hours playlist. Because we've got Will and I did two simple and then deep dive on Zapier. There's a lot of, if you want to dig into more of that, that's not a today thing, but we do have a lot in we have a
here?
lot of resources for you to learn more.
Let
Yeah,
me.
what's up with that? Where did we close it?
I logged out or something. I don't know.
Oh, it's all good.
I'll just sign back in.
You may have opened this something in the like in a window.
Yeah, I did. Here we go.
All good. No, it didn't like the password from the old prior one.
Yeah, here we go. Yay. All right. Great. We're back. Cool. So we discussed how to create a lead flow. There's also, you could go here to the lead flow screen and add a lead flow. What this basically allows you to do is set up the catcher's mitt for a new lead source that you're planning on getting a lead from soon, right? So instead of waiting for that first one to that first lead to enter your system and have the lead flow look like this, where just nothing happens for that first lead, you can set up the lead flow, set up the distribution, and set up an action plan and the lender distribution or whatever you want. And then when that first lead comes in, you already have the plan set up. But yeah, not necessary to do this. But if you're, an overachiever and you want to make sure that everything is in place, then yeah, you can definitely do that. Cool.
Awesome.
So,
Great. So, and like you said, I just want to reiterate this because we said it a minute ago and then we covered some things relevant.
mhm.
Typically doing any of those things, the API connection, the Zapier, the email parsing, creates this lead flow. So
Yeah,
yes, you can manually go do some of those things kind of proactively. To be honest with you, when I do this, I almost still always just send it in first, create the lead flow. Now I can build it. I know it's connected to that, source, and we're good to go.
exactly. That's typically the way I go as well.
And I know it's blurred here because it has to be for the recording and privacy in general, but what's blurred out is the lead source name. So it
Mhm.
makes it really easy. And you can see, I think you mentioned this, but you can see kind of the string of what happened. Like this is this source, it's buyer lead specifically, and it's coming in through API.
Yep, exactly. Right. Like here, API, right? Cool. So let's talk about distribution, because this is one of the biggest time-saving aspects of the lead flow screen. For those of you who are used to playing quarterback and determining who should get which lead manually, and you don't want to do that anymore, this is going to help you guys a lot, because we have the option of not only distributing it to a specific group of agents, but if you guys have pawn set up, you can have it go to a pawn, or just any specific agent on your team, if that's the way you want to go. But yeah, let's talk about groups, because pawns, maybe that's for a different call.
Yeah.
But let's talk about lead flow groups. So groups, create a new group. You can name your group. So for example, like sellers, first to claim. Once you name it, you'll determine whether it's a group of agents or lenders. One thing about this, agents, you can do round robin or first to claim. Lenders, you can only do round robin. Just wanted to make that clear for now. Lender groups are only round robin. But when you're creating an agent group, let's say I just want Lee, Caroline, and April to get leads. Here, I'll determine whether I want the system to evenly distribute leads among these three agents. So Lee gets one, Caroline, and then April, and then Lee, Caroline, April. It never switches the order around. It's just always even. Or we can do first to claim, which is, it presents us with another set of options here. We can like hide the name of the lead. We can hide the source from the lead. But this is really the main thing. If it's not claimed after X amount of minutes, the maximum here is 30 minutes, right? And the minimum is 1. So if we don't claim it after 15 minutes, then we need to assign a fallback, right? So whether that fallback is a specific agent, whether it's a pawn, or whether it's a different group, we can select that from here, right? So different groups, different pawns, or a different agent. So maybe like the team leader, right?
Right.
So once we save that group, it'll be here in our list of groups, and then we can assign that group to this lead flow. So now the next lead that comes through this lead flow will be assigned to this seller's first to claim group. The way first to claim groups work is every agent in that group will be notified via a push notification on the Follow Up Boss app. Super, super important. That's the only way that first to claim notifications go out to agents, is through push notifications on the Follow Up Boss app. So make sure that all of your agents have the app installed. But yeah, then the first person to say like, okay, cool, like I want that lead, will click on it, they'll claim it, and then they'll have the opportunity to contact that person, which ideally, right when they claim it, they call the lead. If the lead doesn't answer, they send a follow-up text. That should be, I just think, an SOP for every team.
Where the human comes in to
Yeah,
all this fancy stuff.
yeah, totally. But yeah, one last thing about first to claim groups is like some of the most successful teams use first to claim groups to distribute their leads, because that just ensures that the agent that's available to help the lead gets that lead, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, maybe some other agent who got the same lead is calling them first, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. That very much the speed to lead is super, super important. And I'll see if I can find a link to it. We did a webinar before where we talked a good bit about even changing it up periodically. I don't recommend like you all just always change it or do whatever, but I had an experience when I ran a team on Follow Boss, although it wasn't this fancy way back then,
Right.
where using that lead flow, it was kind of the example like you said before. I would send a lot of the other leads to certain agents. I realized that one of our agents, I've said this a lot, so apologies if you heard it, for some reason closed a lot of Realtor.com leads. I still to this day don't know why he was especially good with Realtor.com leads, but we figured that out. And I could use this to say, hey, send this guy all the Realtor.com leads because he's killing it. But we were doing back then, it was Zillow zip codes, and we were doing those, but those all came to me as the operations person, and I could just assign them out to the right agent, the right person, click of a button. Hey, give this one to Catherine, give this one to Warren. Like, it's really great. So again, thinking through this and getting it is all. I think it's almost like having another person. It's almost having a person who's very logical. There's no emotion to it. It's not like, oh, I like Bobby. He was in the office this morning.
100%.
It's like,
Yeah.
no, Bobby's next, or Bobby claimed it first, so take.
Right. Right. So there you go. Yeah. Agent groups are great for that purpose. Some use cases for groups would be like sometimes people have buyers and sellers. Sometimes people have, like bronze, silver, and gold tier agents, where the bronze get leads that are up to a certain price range, and then silver gets that mid price range, and then gold gets above a certain amount of dollars for inquiries, for example. Now, lender groups, they're no different. They're no different than agent groups, except for they're only working on a round robin basis. So if you create a group of lenders, you can assign that here, and the lead flow will know that Larry gets the lead, and then Barry, and then Larry, and then Barry, right? Cool.
One thing to mention too, sorry, I meant to mention this earlier when you were on it, but it just popped back into my head. Those names are visible to the agents. Like they're in the activity record in Follow Boss. It'll say, this lead came in, it went to this group and it was claimed by so and so, or it went to this group and it was not claimed, so it did the fallback.
Mhm.
But the names are visible. So just don't name them like the worst leads ever or crappy leads nobody
Yeah.
wants or whatever. But I love we did the same, like gold and bronze or red team and orange team or whatever. But
And what he means is like it'll show up like this, right? So it was assigned to East Valley Agents Group by Lee, or through the lead flow or whatever. So it'll be, yeah, don't say like crummy leads group. Cool. So admin, let's talk. What should we hit?
I think I think we went through all those. I think why don't we do action plans now and then
Yeah.
get into advanced, like finish out this piece of it and then get into the more advanced.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, action plans. On each lead flow, you'll have the opportunity to assign an action plan to that lead flow. So for example, this one doesn't have a lead flow, or I'm sorry, an action plan on it. Let's assign one. And then now this action plan is going to run on every single lead that comes through this lead flow automatically. For those of you who are uninitiated about action plans, we have the ability to have like an initial text message go out on the agent's behalf. We can also have it like create tasks. We can have it send an email on behalf of your agent automatically. So with that example action plan that I just assigned, the Zillow Truly Realtor.com with text message action plan, right when the lead comes in, it'll send this text. Hey, just got your message. Do you have a couple minutes? If there's no response by the 3rd day, it's going to send this email, 7th day this email, 12th day. So essentially, speed to lead is handled, and then 3 weeks of supplementary email follow-up for free, right? The system just does it for you. So honestly, like there's not really a reason. There's very few reasons not to have an action plan assigned to your lead flows. I think it should, mostly, for most lead sources, we should definitely have an action plan assigned to this lead flow.
For sure. And when we get into advanced, we'll show some use cases for either different ones or occasionally not having one. But in general, 100% couldn't agree more. Again, this does not replace using smart lists and calling people and doing things, but I like supplemental. I may steal that word from you. It is supplemental to that.
Yes, exactly. Cool. So let's dive into advanced settings. I know the word advanced may be, off-putting to some people, but it's not that difficult here. When we hit the advanced settings gear icon here, we have the opportunity to basically create a rule for each lead flow based on these conditions. So if leads come in with specific tags, price ranges, specific cities, states, zip codes, etc., we can have the system do something for us. So for example, if the tag includes buyer, right, then have the buyer thing happen, right? The buyer action plan happen. We can then create another rule, and if the tag includes seller, then have the seller lead drip action plan go, right? That's one example. Another example for you Zillow folks is if the tag includes like Zillow connected.
Oh yeah, none of those are in here, of course, but
right. And there's another one that's like Zillow direct call. So, Zillow will tag your leads if they have transferred you that lead directly over the phone. So in those cases, we don't want an action plan to automatically go and send your lead the text like, hey, when's a good time to chat? You just talk to the person, right? So don't do that. But if none of the above apply, then let's make it happen.
Proceed as expected.
Yeah,
and similarly, it's funny, it's same but different. Like Zillow sends a not ready as well, which basically says like, hey, they're not ready to talk to you, but we're ready to get them to you to nurture. Like, don't send out an action plan that says, hey, do you have, can you talk in 5 minutes? Because you're gonna look dumb. I think that the short version is like just using this to make sure that nothing silly is happening.
That's
right to the right people.
100%. But yeah, there's let's see, price.
Price is a great one. I think folks spend a little time on price, and I want to add something in a minute on kind of rentals because it can be a little different scenario. I want to make sure we cover that.
Yeah. So, like if the price is greater than $1 million, go to this group of agents and start this action plan.
Yeah, send a different action plan that says we're we serve luxury clients all over. Here's a, link to our luxury website.
Exactly. And then if it's if the price is less than 1 million and the price is greater than, I don't know, 500,000, then this group of agents with this action plan. And then lastly, if it's below 500,000, then this group of agents, right?
Yeah. And to your point, I want to go a little deeper on that. Like that default rule, we talked about this a little bit, but that default rule is the catch-all.
Yeah.
And also it's important that these rules fire in order. It says it at the top of the screen, but it's important to note that they fall in order. So you want to have them in a little bit of a priority because sometimes people could fit multiple criteria.
Yep.
But if they're, if the most important thing is price driving it, then, let's use price. One other tip I wanted to mention before I forget, a lot of times seller leads come in with a 0 price. And sometimes buyer leads come in with a zero price if they're just like on your website, they fill out a contact form or
General inquiry.
whatever. Yeah. So what I like to do, especially for rentals, I'll either do like a minimum price of like $1 or like 20,000. Sometimes the number that comes in is the aggregate of the year of a month's
Mhm.
lease. But be mindful of those numbers. Don't assume that zero means that it often means that they're either not a buyer or there's a good reason there's not a zero. So if you're
Right.
trying to parse out rentals, and or not send a weird message to sellers, I like putting like is greater than one in
Mhm.
there just to prevent anything funky from happening.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Cool. What else do we have? So like areas.
But
Let's
yeah,
let's
zip codes and city names and well,
yeah,
city names are tags technically, but well,
exactly.
or city or like that.
Yeah. City names include, like whatever, Dallas, Denver, Fort Worth, like, you know what a city is. But, like the reason people would use this as opposed to a zip code, for example, would be like zip codes sometimes they go between like city lines. I don't know how often that happens, but yeah, there's, for example, I was just talking to a team this morning. Their team serves 54 zip codes, and they have a bunch of agents that they service certain zip codes and not others. And there's no like rhyme or reason to which ones those agents serve. Like in other words, like it's not just a convenient Venn
Right.
diagram.
It's not a square map.
Yeah. So what he's going to do is he's going to create a group for each zip code, and that's his prerogative. Like it's just going to, because he's right now spending so much time trying to distribute these leads manually. And what's more is he doesn't want to create like an umbrella group um, for like a general area, because then agents are going to get these lead notifications and then you'll be like, well, that doesn't even pertain to me. And eventually it's going to be like a boy who cried wolf situation where it's like, well, I'm whatever. Like it's just, there's so many leads that like it don't even matter, don't even pertain to me, that I'm just not going to pay attention to those notifications. So, 54 groups, it takes about, I would say, what, 10 seconds. He already has like a spreadsheet of all like the zip codes and the agents that service them. He's just going to create those. And then what's cool is this is like really why I think this is really cool. So let's just pretend like the zip code, 9999. There you go. And then, oops, 92629. Let's do that. Great. If it's that zip code, this group, and then we can add another rule. Zip 90210. Awesome. Remove this. And then, let's just imagine like there's 54 of these, right? Let's save this. What's cool is, even though he has 6 or 7 different lead sources with each with their own lead flow, he can go in to the next lead source and just copy those rules from that other lead flow, right? So he can go, let's look at this one. This one only has 1 associated to it. Let's just pretend this is the zip code one. He can just select all 54 and copy the rules, and that's all he has to do, right? He doesn't have to recreate those rules for every single lead flow, which is huge time saver.
Yeah, it's really I love that. And before we hit record or hit go on this, I was mentioning too that sometimes if I build a really, really complex one, I'll actually just copy it to an old dead lead flow just because like I don't want to have to build it again if somebody breaks it or removes some stuff. It's kind of like a backup copy.
Right.
So that's
Like
another pro tip. Or you could use the add lead flow and create a new fake lead flow and
exactly.
apply it to
Exactly.
that. That's a little more dangerous because the lead could actually come in to that and something weird happen.
Right.
But definitely a good thing to have. And I don't
Totally.
want to take us off track, but I want to throw this in now. And then obviously, if you guys have any questions, drop in the Q&A or the chat. We're happy to tackle those. I think a lot of times some people see this, and I think people also often refer to this as automation because they're like, oh, stuff is happening automatically.
Mhm.
Technically, this is lead flow. Automations in Follow Up Boss are different, but I think now a lot of people use the term automation for anything that happens automatically. But I want to be clear that the lead flow itself is kind of the distinction between an automation versus a lead flow type of action. Automations do not run on brand new leads that come into lead flow. For lead, if you want to automate inbound lead flow stuff, most likely you're looking at this. You're going to add an action plan that sends a text, sends an email, create a task, do a thing, reassign it, whatever it needs to do. But a pro tip on that, if you want to use them in interaction, this is kind of advanced. Part of me didn't want to bring it up, and part of me is like, it's pretty important though to mention, because since automations don't fire on brand new lead flow leads, what I will do typically is maybe add a tag or a certain action in that initial action plan, and that can fire an automation. So if you
Yep.
want to use automations on new leads, the proper way to do it is use lead flow first, use something in that action plan to trigger the automation. It'll run 2 seconds after they are a new lead, but it does not run as they come in to lead flow. And I know it's
Right.
kind of complex, but pretty important.
Well, I'll try to demonstrate that very clearly. So,
Cool.
for example, like this action plan that Zillow Truly Realtor come with text message action plan is assigned to this lead flow. And if we look at that action plan, what it does is it sends a text and then it starts with an email drip. What we can do, what Lee's talking about, is adding a step to immediately add a tag that, automation start. I don't know.
Nice.
Right. So what he's saying is the action plan we know is going to automatically start on the lead as soon as it enters through that lead flow. So what this will do now is it's going to start, but it's also going to add the tag immediately. This tag here is the one that we can use to trigger an automation that does something else, right? So yeah, that is, it's getting a little bit more.
It's pretty advanced, but I would feel bad not saying that if somebody's like, I'm trying to use an automation to do this, and we're like, it doesn't work.
No, I mean, yeah, it's not, it's like it's a simple concept. Like you're essentially like just daisy chaining automation triggers within an action plan, but people can take that really far.
Yeah, and I'm not recommending doing that. I'm saying if you know about that and that's something you want to do, just be mindful that they're
100%.
kind of separate things, but
100%. And I think one of the most common ways that people leverage that concept is, having that action plan. Sorry, excuse me. Having this tag start like an agent accountability automation.
right.
And then,
right, more internal stuff. You don't need an automation to fire more emails at them when they're on an action plan.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, add the tag team lead, or like, which of course you can still do in lead flow, but
sure.
Like you're right, great point. More internal stuff probably than more extra marketing on top of what you've already got.
Yeah, exactly.
That's beautiful. I love that. And then obviously, that plan in particular has the stage change after X number of days.
Yep.
So again, kind of back to the overarching strategy. What are you trying to do? Okay, well, we do a 10 days of pain. All right, great. Your smart lists are the 10 days of pain. But if after 10 days they haven't responded, move them to this, do this, alert me, add a note, like whatever you need to do.
Yeah, and that's like that concept of like daisy chaining them. Otherwise, this plan would just end and nothing else would happen, right? And it would be up to you, your team or your agent to like manually do the thing. Whereas we can just get this. The whole point of this is to get the system to do it for us. So any action plan that just ends with an email being sent, consider tacking on a step that is either a stage change or a tag being added, because both of those are automation triggers.
Right.
And then you can have the system do whatever you want it from.
Great point. That's the other thing. I like to add the tag sometimes. I don't even know what I'm going to do with it. I'll just say like new buyer lead action plan complete. Like, okay, I don't know what to do with that yet, but I need to know.
Well, but that's why I love tags, is because they just by adding the tag, you can then find those people very easily. And that's like one of the primary purposes of tags. Tags are very versatile, and we can like have a whole tangent conversation on tags, but just know that you can leverage tags and stage changes within these lead flow action plans to have the system do, take it further for you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one more thing I forgot to mention, and I don't see any questions. If anybody has any, drop them in, or I'll answer them in the chat, or we'll talk them through. But one cool thing on the advanced lead flows, if you can click on the bottom one, since that actually the settings have been there for a minute. Yeah, not really. What I wanted to show though too, an important way to kind of measure or check how well this is working. You can see that it says 0 leads, partly because we just built some of this and it's a dummy account.
Yeah.
But what's really cool, and I literally did this with somebody this morning, going through this because they have them routed by area. It's really easy to go through and see the counts on each of these.
Yeah.
So you can tell if it's not working or you didn't get lead in that area. You can go, oh, wow, look, we get a lot of leads in this one particular area. Maybe we need more agents in that group or whatever that is. But this is,
Or yeah,
yeah, right. But this is super handy. Obviously, it's not retroactive. If you make the rule, it's not going to, only moving forward, it's going to run. But being able to see the counts of what happened, whether it's by area or MLS number or whatever criteria you're using here, is really helpful. A, to check that it's working, and B, to get some additional data around how many leads are coming in and getting assigned that way, and just to make sure there's nothing, funky with that. It's not a 0 and it's not 10,000 and you sending it to 2 agents.
totally, totally. And like that, there's some lead sources that don't don't send the leads through with tags. So
Right.
If a condition is like the tag is this, you're going to expect a 0 for forever unless that lead source decides to do that eventually. One last thing I'll say about tags that, or leads that come in with tags already on them is, let's take this for example. Let's say a lead did come in with the open house attendee tag on them already. If you have an automation that has open house attendee as the automation trigger, and the lead already comes in with that tag on them, this automation will not be triggered. This tag has to be added after the fact, right? So yeah, don't expect an
Right.
automation to be triggered by a tag that comes in along with the lead. It has to be added after the fact.
I love that you said it that way. I think, and this just occurred to me the way you said it. Lead flow is reading tags. The action plan can apply tags, and automations can be fired by tags. That's really the whole tagging structure. But I'm so glad you said that because it was, I think, a better way to say what I was saying about the automate, a more useful way than some crazy fancy automation thing. So
Sure.
I love
I
that.
mean, and there's like really no way that you would necessarily know unless you encountered that, that situation. So just wanted to make it clear to everyone that's watching. Yeah, that's how it works.
That's beautiful.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Great job covering everything. This really is, like we said, in some sense, it feels simple. You look at this, you're like, oh, it's got 3 blanks, but there's really a lot you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's just one last thing that we didn't cover, which is archive. We kind of like, we
Yeah.
went over it a little bit, but like sometimes, let's say you have an account with like a rental lead flow, and you're like, I don't want to deal with renters with my team at all. You can archive. Let's just pretend that this is like a renter lead flow. When you hit archive, you have a couple of options here. In addition to archiving, would you like to ignore any future leads? If you choose ignore, you can reactivate it in the future by unarchiving it. So if we just archive, we see that the lead goes from the unarchived page to the archived page, right? Here it is. Now, if what archiving it does is it gets it out of your face until another lead comes in through that same lead flow, and it will automatically unarchive that lead and put it back in your face. So if you don't want it to ever come back, unless you specifically want that to happen, you would hit archive and ignore future leads, right? That way, even if 10 more leads come in that day, it won't come back into the unarchived list. So I think that's pretty much it. I think we did it.
Yeah. That's all things lead flow and optimizing them. That was a great job.
Yep. Cool. So questions, I think I see maybe one or two.
Yeah, quick here. Well, Awesome. Yeah, just more of a comment, but
Sure.
yeah, really appreciate you guys being on. We love doing these sessions for you guys. We always want feedback. I'm also going to send out, I always send out the recording of these sessions, usually same day as soon as I get it. This is definitely something where we don't expect you to watch this once and just be like, awesome. I'm going to go build all my lead flows. So we'll make sure you have access to this recording. We have other webinars and other sessions as well, covering these and many other things. But always appreciate you guys being on. We do these twice a month, Follow Up Boss office hours. Typically post them in the Follow Up Boss success community, which is linked there as well. And they come out in the Friday email. So we love when you guys join us and we can all learn stuff together.
And yeah, I mean, looking at the help center, if you have questions about the lead flow overview, lead flow advanced rules, lead flow versus, versus automations, lead processing, it's all here, right? So this, like the help center, I mean, you guys as real estate agents, in addition to communicating with your leads, like one of your hugest skill sets is finding accurate and true information. It's like what you guys do, So here's one of those ways, one of those vehicles to help you flex that muscle is just find it, right? Just yeah, the help center, super valuable resource. The Facebook success community also is just a huge resource. If you want experts like Lee and Elena Key and like Tristan Almeida and like just like there's so many professionals that want to help you guys succeed. Ask away.
And there's a 10-year history of brilliant people sharing things and asking questions and all that. So, for sure.
Cool. Matt asks, are we able to touch on what ponds are? Yeah,
Let's
very
do it at
quick.
a high level because it does fall into the lead flow in the sense that you can route to a pond initially or later.
Totally. So ponds are only available for admins and owners to create. They're a way to get a lead out of a specific agent's hands and put it into a pond where anyone who's involved in that pond can access that lead. So, one of the initial brainchilds was or rather like a situation where ponds would be useful is I'm an agent, I have too much on my plate, I keep getting assigned new leads, but I don't want to specifically assign it to like one individual. I just, here you go, here's the extra leads that I can't work, and then whoever's involved in that pond, maybe they have done all their prospecting and don't have anything in the pipeline, they can go into this pond and prospect there.
I used to really be against routing right to ponds. I've very much come around on that. My worry is always that it just goes into space. You put it in a pond, there's not one agent assigned to follow up with it. It's just going to sit there. But there's a number of great use cases. One certainly being the prospecting thing. Again, like we said before, if you have a less valuable lead source, so to speak, or something that needs more love and nurture and conversion, putting them on an action plan and putting them in a pond where people can prospect, but you also have to show them how to do that and
it,
come up with some basic policy around like when do you claim it,
ground rules, exactly.
all that. But I also see a lot of people now with bigger ISA teams that flow to a pond and whoever's ready to rock first. But again, there's got to be a smart list or some way because there's no direct responsibility of any one person to reach out. That was
Which
why
is
I always used
inherent,
to
right?
be worried
Yeah,
about
it's like
it.
inherent in the ponds, right? It's like
Right.
not up to one single individual. It's like a collective thing. So that's kind of like, it's easier for people to defer responsibility for leads that are in this pond when there's like 10 agents that are like,
Right.
well, are you doing it? Are you doing it? Right.
Right. And you can also manually reassign to a pond. So if you talk to somebody and they're like, I was just looking, or I just wanted to see more pictures, whatever,
Yeah,
but you want to keep them in the system, same thing. Depending on your settings, kind of keeps them out of your smart list, keeps them off your day-to-day radar.
100%.
But it's still a good holding bucket instead of just, this dude's been sitting in nurture for 7 years.
I always warn team leaders, like, don't let ponds be where your leads go to die. Have someone like you were saying earlier, like an ISA that's monitoring the pond and actively working the pond as a part of their daily workflow, so that we know that those people are getting taken care of in some way, shape, or form.
Beautiful. That's great. Thanks for adding that, Matt. That's a great question. I really didn't think to cover ponds as part of lead flow, but it really makes really good sense.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
I added it to our agenda and checked it off. So
Nice.
beautiful. Well, thank you guys for being on. Alejandro, amazing job. There's a lot
Thank
to
you.
tackle, and I think you did it in a really wonderful way.
Cool. I appreciate it. All right,
Awesome.
guys. Thanks again. See ya.